Hello dear learners, today we are going to talk about the MCQs from social pharmacy, which was earlier known as health education and community pharmacy. According to the Educational Regulation 1991, it is health education and community pharmacy, and upcoming regulations the subject is social pharmacy, which includes almost similar topics. Now we are going to talk about the MCQs from demography and family planning part 1. Part 1 contains the MCQs regarding demographic cycle and what is demography, and further parts they include the MCQs regarding fertility, family planning, etc. So there are multiple parts. So stay tuned for the series on the MCQs from demography and family planning. First question is, scientific study of human population is dash. Whether it is sociography, whether it is demography, whether it is histography, or all of them, the correct answer is it is demography. Scientific study of human population is called as demography. Demography basically is the quantitative study of human population, wherein it deals with the composition of population, like how much distribution of the population in various regions. Then it studies about the changes in the population from migration. Okay. So these are all quantitative aspects. Different indicators are there. With the help of that, we usually carry out the studies. So demography is nothing but to deal with the human population, and graphy is the study. So demography deals with the scientific study of the human population. Next question is, demography is concerned with, whether it is concerned with the changes in the population size, whether it is concerned with the composition of the population, whether it is concerned with the distribution of the population, or all of them. The correct answer is it is all of them. Demography is concerned with changes in population size also, its composition also, and the distribution also, just now as we discussed in the definition. So it is scientific study of human population which involves these three phenomenon through measurement of the birth rate, okay, then mortality, morbidity, this mobility, social mobility, migration, okay. So this is with respect to change in the population, composition of the population, and distribution of the population in space. Next question is, the process of complete counting of individuals in a country on a fixed date is known as dash. Whether it is Snellen, whether it is census, whether it is Celsius, or none of them, the correct answer is it is census. Complete counting of individual in a country on a fixed date is known as census, like census 2011 and 2021, paper census and digital census. Now it is the counting, like in Hindi we call it as Bharat ki Janaganana. So how the census is, for that we will see the next question, or what is about census. So the next question is, census is calculated dash once in every 10 years ending with digit 1, once in every 5 years, or once in a year, or none of them. The correct answer is it is once in every 10 years ending with digit 1. Means like just now we have seen it's 2011 and now it's 2021. So the figure is ending with 1 at the end and the difference is of 10 years. So it is once in 10 years ending with digit 1. As you can see here, the 2021 census of India is the 16th Indian census which will be taken. The 15th Indian census was taken in 2011. 11 ends with the 1. and 2021 ends with the 1, but now due to pandemic issues it is being postponed or it is being delayed. So Census of India 2021. For further more informations you can go to the official site indiacensus.gov.in. Next question is, demographic cycle consists of dash stages. Whether it consists of 4 stages, whether it consists of 6 stages, whether it consists of 3 stages or 5 stages, the correct answer is it is 5 stages. Demographic cycle consists of 5 stages. Next, as you can see here, there are 5 stages. Stage 1 is there, stage 2 is there, then stage 3 is there, stage 4 is there, and stage 5 is there. So these are the total 5 stages. First stage is high stationary, then early expanding, late expanding, low stationary stage and declining stage. So these are the 5 stages of the demographic cycle. Next question is, a definite pattern which every country follows for the history of its population. The pattern followed, whether it is a demographic cycle, whether it's a rubric cycle, whether it's a historic cycle, or all of them. So as we all know, the scientific study of human population is nothing but demography, and the pattern which is followed for the history of population of that particular country will be definitely the demographic cycle. So the correct answer is it is demographic cycle. This we have seen. Now as you can see here the examples, there are various countries. So every country follows the same pattern, like see India, South Asian and African countries, China, Singapore, UK, okay, many developed, developing, underdeveloped countries, all are there. So every country will follow the same pattern, that is demographic cycle for the history of its population. Next question is, first stage of the demographic cycle is also known as dash. Whether it is early expanding stage, whether it is high stationary phase, whether it is late expanding stage or low stationary phase, the correct answer is it is high stationary phase, or you can call it as a stage. So first stage is high stationary stage. So what happens actually in first stage, we will see now. See this, you can see here it is a high stationary stage. So as the word suggests, high and stationary, that means the population is constant as well as it is high. That means constant means what? Population basically deals with what it is birth rate and death rate. Like birth rate is number of child taking birth, and death rate is number of people dying every year. Okay, so this is high and constant. So that is the reason the stage is called as high stationary. That means birth rate is also high, death rate is also high. As you can see here, both the arrows are upwards. So this is high stationary stage. That is the reason this first stage is known as high stationary, because both natality, which is known as birth rate, and mortality, which is known as death rate, both are high. Next question is, second stage of demographic cycle is also known as dash. It is whether it is known as early expanding stage, high stationary stage, late expanding stage or low stationary phase. The correct answer is it is early expanding. Now as the word suggests, early expanding, as you can see here, early expanding stage. Early expanding means what? Initially it is increasing. So to increase the population, definitely birth rate should be high and death rate should be low compared to birth rate. So then only it will expand. So in early expanding stage, what happens? As you can see here, birth rate, it is plus minus, means what? birth rate is same as that of first stage, but death rate has declined. So that is the reason it is called as early expanding stage. Next question is, third stage of demographic cycle is also known as dash. Whether it is known as early expanding, high stationary, late expanding or low stationary, the correct answer is it is late expanding stage. Now, why this third stage is known as late expanding stage? Because as the word suggests, late expanding means what? The population is expanding, means increasing only, but since it is late expanding means what? As you can see here the arrows, like birth rate was same as that of first stage in the second stage, but now in third stage the birth rate has declined over here and death rate has further declined. That means still in late expanding also birth rate is comparatively more than death rate. That is the reason it is expanding only, but it is late expanding. That means birth rate has also declined, but it is not as that of death rate. It is still higher than the death rate. Next question is, fourth stage of the demographic cycle is also known as dash. Whether it is known as early expanding, high stationary, late expanding or low stationary, the correct answer is it is low stationary stage. Now, why it is known as low stationary stage? Now, as the word suggests, low stationary means what? It is constant like first stage, but the first stage was high stationary. That means the population is growing, so birth rate is also high, population is constant, so birth rate is also high, death rate is also high because it is high stationary. Now what will happen in low stationary? Birth rate is also low and death rate is also low. So it is known as low stationary stage. That means population is constant. Next question is, fifth stage of demographic cycle is also known as dash. Whether it is known as early expanding stage, whether it is known as high stationary stage, whether it is decline stage or low stationary phase, the correct answer is it is declining stage. Why it is declining stage? Because birth rate and death rate both has reduced in stage 4. Now in declining stage what will happen? Death rate is same, means death rate it is same as that of stage 4, but birth rate has so declined that as it was in third stage that it was higher than death rate, but here birth rate is very low, which is below death rate also. So means death rate is comparatively low and means birth rate is comparatively very low, that too death rate. So it is declining stage. That means zero growth stage. That is negative, not zero. It is negative growth stage. That means population is not growing only. Birth rate has further declined than the death rate. So it is known as declining stage. Next question is, characteristics of first stage of the demographic cycle is. Now we just now discussed all the 5 stages in detail. So what was the characteristic of first stage? You remember? The first stage was birth rate and death rate. Since the first stage is known as high stationary stage, both were high and the population was constant stationary. So the feature is high birth rate and low death rate, or high birth rate and high death rate, or birth rate is unchanged but death rate declines, or decline in both death and birth rate. The correct answer is it is both are high and steady. So it is high birth rate and high death rate, as we have already seen this. So it is both are high, birth rate is also high, death rate is also high. So India was there in high stationary phase till 1920. Next question is, characteristics of the second stage of the demographic cycle is. Now second stage was, birth rate was same as that of first, but death rate has declined. So we will see the options now, whether it is high birth rate and low death rate, whether it is high birth rate and high death rate, whether it is birth rate unchanged but death rate declined, or whether it is decline in both death and birth rate. The correct answer is, it is birth rate is unchanged but death rate has declined. That means natality is unchanged but mortality has declined. So as you can see here, birth rate plus minus, that means it is same as that of first stage but death rate has declined. Next question is, characteristic of the third stage of demographic cycle is. Now the third stage was the birth rate and the death rate, about natality and mortality. So what is the characteristic of the third stage, we will see now. Whether it is high birth rate and low death rate, whether it is high birth rate and high death rate, whether it is birth rate unchanged but death rate declines, or whether it is birth rate and death rate both falls but birth rate exceeds the total deaths. The correct answer is, it is birth rate and death rate both are falling but birth rate is still higher than the death rate. So this was the third stage, which was known as late expanding stage. So currently the India, China, Singapore is there in the late expanding stage. That means birth rate is still high than the death rate. Next question is, characteristics of the fourth stage of demographic cycle is. Now the fourth stage of demographic cycle is stationary. That means birth rate and death rate both has declined but they are at the constant rate, same rate. So low birth rate, low death rate, constant population, high birth rate, high death rate, birth rate unchanged but death rate has declined, or decline in both death and birth rate. So there is decline in both birth rate and death rate, but the condition is the population is constant. So the correct answer is, it is low birth rate and low death rate but the population is constant. So as you can see here, it is developed countries such as UK, Sweden, Denmark, etc. These are there in the low stationary phase, wherein birth rate and death rate both has declined and they are at the constant rate. Next question is, characteristic of fifth stage of demographic cycle is dash. Whether it is, now fifth stage is known as decline stage, or it is also known as negative growth stage. So here what happens, birth rate has so declined that it is very much less than death rate. So population is at negative growth. So the correct answer, the options are low birth rate, low death rate, constant population, low birth rate than the death rate, birth rate is unchanged but death rate declines, decline in both death and birth rate. So the correct answer is, it is low birth rate than the death rate. As you can see here, it is birth rate, two arrows are there, it is declined than the death rate. Okay. With this we finish with few of the MCQs from demography and family planning in the part 1, which was revolving about the demography and the demographic cycle. So we'll just have a quick review. The 5 stages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First is high stationary, both are high. Second is early expanding, that means birth rate is same but death rate has declined. Third is late expanding, that means birth rate and death rate both are low but birth rate is still higher than the death rate. And the stage 4 is both are low and constant, stationary. Okay, expanding is increasing, stationary is constant, but as the name suggests, high and low. Here it is low and constant, in first stage it is high and constant. Second stage, it is expanding, so birth rate is constant but death rate has declined, and in late expanding, death rate has further declined and birth rate is declined but it is more than death rate. Now what happens in fifth stage? It is birth rate has declined so that it is very less than death rate also. It is exactly opposite of that of the third stage. So these are the 5 stages of the demographic cycle. So with this we finish with the part 1 MCQs. Stay tuned for part 2 MCQs, which will cover fertility and the contraception methods, that is family planning. Thank you.